Let's finish off this get selection. We're going to choose to validate whatever we can in here. My idea is if it's wrong, then, or if they've entered the wrong value, then keep asking them to input something. So that's the idea. Now, we've already taken care of if they enter a letter or a word, it's going to, because this is expecting a number, and if they enter a word, some text, it's going to cause an error, and this line is going to be executed. So that really is taking care of that. However, this is really expecting a number, and any number, so a decimal number, 3.1 as we saw, would work. It would accept 3.1 and return it and print it out. And we want to stop that happening. We only want integers 1, 2, 3 or 4. I could, and this is for exam practice as well, I could turn whatever they type in into an integer by casting it. And to cast it, I'm just going to enclose that with the word int, meaning turn it into an integer whatever they input. So that would give me what I'm looking for. So let's have a look at that. It's not an ideal solution, but it is one method of validation. We're looking at validation techniques. So we know A doesn't work. I'm not going to try that at the moment because it's not on a loop. I don't want to have to keep running the program. But if I type in 3.14159, let's do a little bit of pi. If I type that in and press enter, what's going to happen? It's going to turn this into an integer. In other words, everything, including the decimal point from there right, is going to be ignored, and it's just going to give me the left hand side of that decimal point. And we'll see that because it gives me 3. Now that seems to be quite a good solution. So I've now got an integer, so even if they type in a ridiculous number, it's going to turn it into an integer and I should be fine. However, that being said, if I run my program again, I've still got problems because if I enter 5, it accepts it, and obviously there's no 5 in my menu. So I want to stop that happening. One way or another, I've got a little bit of programming to do. Now the best way I find of doing that is kind of having a loop. First of all, let's have a variable, valid selection, as a list or an array, and put in there all the valid items that I can have. So if they type 1, 2, 3 or 4, that would be fine. Let's get rid of this int. I'm not going to cast it. There we go. So if they type anything that's not in this list, it's going to reject it. I'm also going to get rid of that choice because really the way I'm going to be doing it, choice should be set to a value before it ever gets that line and shouldn't throw the error. But I need a loop, and we've seen this programming before. I'm going to set a variable valid to false, and then I'm going to have a while loop and say while not valid, and while it's not valid, it's going to run all of these lines over and over again. So I'm going to indent them so they're inside the loop. However, I need to change my variable valid from false to true to end this loop and return the value choice, which is why I didn't set choice at the top, because it's never going to end this loop until choice is set to be something useful. And I can just do that in here. So I'm going to get the input and I'm going to ask my program to look at this variable and to see if the number or whatever they've typed in is in this list. So the way to do that is set if I was shortcutting it then. If choice is in valid selection, so now it's going to look to see if the value choice is in this list. If it is, then what we're going to do is set valid equals true. If it's false, it's still going to keep running through the loop. So what's going to happen? So it's going to run inside this loop because valid is false. Choice, if they type 3.1, it's going to come down to this line. If choice is in valid selection, well, 3.1 isn't in there, so it's never going to change valid to true. It's going to come down to here to the end of the loop, and then it's going to ask again. So let's see that in action. So we know it's not going to work if I type A. It's not going to work if I type any word or any string. Please enter a valid number. It's not going to work if I press 0 or 3.14159. It's going to reject that too. It's not in that list of numbers there. If I type 5, it's not in that list of numbers. It keeps looping round asking for the choice. Finally, I'm going to be giving it a number that is in that list. It's going to accept that selection, come down to here and print out choice. Okay, so that is sort of validated my statement. Now, what I was doing, I'm going to try it out now. I was going to use a kind of shorthand shorthand piece of code for this rather than have it in an if statement. All I was going to say was that valid in valid selection. So let me get rid of that line. Hopefully this will work. So I'm saying if valid is in valid select, if choice, sorry, that's me being daft. Valid in valid selection will make valid true or false. It will be false if it's not in there. It will be true if it is in there, and it should work. Fingers crossed. This is where I'm likely to get a mistake. So here we go. Let's try it out with things that we did before. A, it's fine. Let's try elephant. Looks fine. Naught. 3.14159. So using a bit of logic, I have actually shortened my program. 5 shouldn't be accepted. 4 should. 4 isn't working, so I can't do that. 3 isn't working, so I do need the if statement. But that's just checking if it is in there. So if I type an equal sign in front of that, valid equals valid. Let's change that to choice in valid selection. That makes more sense. Ignore me, I was having a mental breakdown. Right, let's try that again. A, fine, elephant, fine, naught, fine, 3.14, fine, 5, fine, 1, and we're there. Yeah. So that was just my brain not working. Can't do two things at the same time, such as think and make videos. But the same thing goes. I have taken the 2 lines, the if statement, and I've replaced it with 1 line, which is logical. So valid is true or false, so it's boolean. Choice is a number, whatever you typed in. and it's going to check, as it did before, to see if it's invalid selection. If it is invalid selection, this side will equate to true and valid will be true. If the choice is not in, so if it was 5, which is not in there, this will equate to false and valid will be false, and we'll continue the loop. So that is a neat way of doing it. I do apologise for getting mixed up. Like I say, can't chew and talk at the same time. It's not possible. But really, I have now, I've got my menu and I've validated the input, so they can't put anything in other than what I want them to put in. So I'm now ready to understand what their choice was and then branch off to that part of the program to do it. Now this is going to work with any game. So if you write another game and you want a menu, all you've got to do is change the menu options. And if you've got 5 options, then you'd have the 5th option here, print 5, do something else, but you'd add the 5 to this list here. And in that way you have a menu for any program, which is why developing it separately is very, very useful. Now that I've finished this and I can guarantee that these 2 functions work and do as I want, I could copy and paste them into my anagram program and move on from there, which I probably will do. I'm going to look at the next part of the analysis, scope of variables. That's going to be a video at the very end of the series, although I might mention it before. But we've done the menu system, we've done user input for the menu option, but we haven't done user input for guessing the word, and that's going to be a string, so I think we'll have a look at doing that next.